don't like it in here.
Hey, what's the matter with you?
Where did he go?
Wild. Put your soul into it. Wild. What's going on around you?
And hello, everyone. Welcome to Haunting Live podcast this week. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Trevor. I'm host of Haunting Live podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. We do have a very special guest joining us this week, but just before we bring him on, I'd like to remind you guys to check out our YouTube channel. We are live streaming right now on YouTube, so thank you very much for tuning in this week. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, hit the like button as well on our videos if you like any of the videos that you see here on our channel. It does help us out a lot. We also have noticed quite a few subscribers lately on YouTube, so we appreciate that very much. And like I said, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. But also, don't forget to follow us on our other social media platforms. We are on Facebook as well as Twitter and Instagram as well. So check those out and follow us over there. We'd appreciate that too. But like I said, today we do have a special guest joining us. We have an occult expert, and he's also into traditional witchcraft. So we're going to be talking to Ryan Espich today. So let's bring him on today. Hi, Ryan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us here on Haunting Live. I really appreciate you taking your time out this week and joining us here to talk about what you do.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's wonderful having you. I appreciate it very, very much. I know you're into a bunch of different things. Your main thing is traditional witchcraft, which I'm going to ask you a few questions about. I find that really fascinating. And you're into some other things like occult expert and a Ouija board collecting also. So I think we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But first of all, just tell me a little bit about your background, first of all. What brought you into the field?
Actually, Witchboard, 1986, by Kevin Tenney, the amazing Kevin Tenney. I have to have that. So I seen the movie. I wanted to do everything in the movie. I wanted to be the psychic in the movie. You know, you're young, you want to be everything in the movie that you see. So I got into it. I asked for all these books on witchcraft, and I asked for a Ouija, and lo and behold, Santa delivered. And it just kind of went from there, and I never thought it would get this far, and it actually did. So I blame it on my parents. They were the ones that, told me that it was okay. Bought me the stuff, bought me the books, bought me the boards, so all of that stuff. So, they were pretty good with it.
Well, that's a great Santa right there that brings you Ouija boards for Christmas.
It was an amazing Santa.
What else did you get that year for Christmas? Was there anything else that they brought you that you liked?
Tarot cards, herbs, different kinds of oils, different books on witchcraft, Wicca, paganism. So every year it was, different pagan, religions, different, we had cultural backgrounds. So it was pretty interesting. It was really interesting.
That's wonderful. At least you got what you wanted that year for sure. What year was it? How old were you when you got into this stuff?
Probably about 7, 1989 or the early 19 whatever.
Yeah, fairly young age to get into that kind of stuff. So how was it for you when you actually started using that type of material? Was people kind of like, what are you doing? You shouldn't be touching at that age, or were they more open-minded about it?
I had a lot of people that were against it. A lot of people used to come over and they would break my boards, and my dad used to wood whittle and do all kinds of work on with the wood, and so they would come over and they would break my stuff. I was going to hell. I was evil. I'm the devil. I'm the Antichrist. So it was pretty interesting. But, my parents and my grandparents, they never, gave me any shit for it. They never cared. So it was like, do your own thing, find your own path. And so I did. But it was kind of terrifying at first. It was a little terrifying at first, especially when you meet, you call on Pan when you don't know what you're doing. And the like etymology of the word pan derives from panic. So from probably about 13 years old, 12, 13, I developed a panic disorder. And then about 20 years after, I went back and looked at that same book, and it said, be cautious because he does cause panic attacks.
That's interesting. So were you kind of like medically diagnosed as having something from actually starting to get into the subject?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything that they could do to help you, or was it something that you had to sort of guide yourself through?
I got lots of medication to take care of the panic attacks and the anxiety. Meditation, mindfulness, breathing, that's the biggest thing. That's the best thing besides medication.
Okay, so it's more like a self-guided thing that you have to sort of work your way through on your own. You can actually go to somebody and say, I want to do this or do that, and how can you help me work through this? You kind of have to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, because I couldn't go to the doctor and say, well, here's the book that, I read the invocation, I think it was, or an evocation for Pan, and, here's my book, here's what I did, can you help me? They probably would have been like, you can go see the church and they could help you maybe. No, they can't.
Or like, yeah, sure, we'll help you. Here's the key. We'll lock you away for a few days. Sometimes it just cuts off like that, but it's weird. The connection will stay on, but my guest or whatever will just disappear for a second, but then they'll come back. So that has happened here before, so I apologize for that. For those watching, that is. But you're just talking about how you dealt with that as a child, how you sort of got into it. You had some medical issues and things, panic attacks from dealing with the subject. How did you manage to get through it? Was it easy to overcome, or was it a long journey for you to overcome?
It was terrifying. I still haven't overcome it. To be honest, I've grown into knowing that, it's okay, that, that's like the darker side of nature. So, Pan being a nature god. And then, I'm like, okay, well, that's, I understand now that, I'm 36, that it was Pan. And so, I went to the doctor and, I did therapy and thinking that would work, and it didn't help. And then I just kind of quit everything altogether, and it still didn't work. And I kept seeing literally Baphomet in my bedroom window. Like you could see the steam coming off of his nose. That's how intense it was. And the red eyes, it was terrifying. And I was like 13. So that's a very terrifying experience.
And 13, of course, the unlucky number. So you might have been having some experiences for a reason at that age as well, I think.
That's when a lot of stuff actually started to snowball. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So it was insane.
So how was it after that then? The next stage of your life, how did you progress with studying the craft? Was it something that you wanted to continue doing, or did you feel like some hesitant going further with it?
I felt pretty confident in knowing that like Wicca wasn't for me. So, I could have just lily padded, if you want to say, lily padded from like different religions. So it was Haitian voodoo. It was, witchcraft. It was Satanism. And then it always circles around back to traditional Cornish craft, and that's in my heart.
Yeah, you were saying to me earlier that you kind of dabbled in a bunch of different things, such as voodoo and Wiccan, and you found out those weren't the type of things that you wanted to continue doing, but it brought you back to the traditional witchcraft. So for people that are watching or listening, can you explain a little bit in detail about what you do and what witchcraft is all about for those that don't know what it is?
Okay, so traditional witchcraft, Cornish craft specifically, it's not really traditional, but it draws on elements of traditional craft from Europe, from the original British Isles, from England, Cornwall, like Anglia, I think that's how you say it. What was I saying? Oh, and it's basically like a get it done now. It's a quick, get it over with, get it done now kind of system. So it's very practical. It's very common sense. We do use a lot of, the herbs like for blood stopping. If you're bruised, the old charms, like if you have a wart, on the full moon, take it outside, cut the potato in half, rub it on the wart, bury it, and then your wart's gone. It truly works. Don't know how, it just does.
That's an interesting one. I haven't heard that one before, so that's kind of cool. So are there things that you can do for people directly then? Maybe some people might be wondering, okay, that's how it originated, but what kind of things can you do with it? So can you go through some of the things that you actually do with traditional witchcraft?
I do a lot of candle magic, a lot of love work for clients, as they all know, if they're watching. But yeah, candle magic, pin magic, knot and cord magic, a lot of it's called becoming. So we will go outside and we will be very aware of our surroundings, and we will take everything in from the land, what we call the serpentine sproul, which is literally the regenerative force that's within the earth itself, at which it vibrates at like B minor, I think it is. Not 100% sure, so don't quote me. But we work with that energy, and so we'll go out and we'll collect, like sprawl, which is energy, and we'll store it in cords. And if somebody needs healing, like from a distance, then we can, on a windy day, say you go on top of a hill, you untie that little cord in the wind, and then you can only look with one left eye, which is really difficult. I mean, some of the things are a little off, but it is the crooked path. But we have that, a lot of work with different beings, the entities, fairy folk. Actually, yeah, big time fairy folk. Ancestors are like the number one thing that we work with. So we're always considered, since the ancestors go back to the earth, they're considered to be fairy folk at times, but then again, they can just go become part of the source, whatever is the powers that be.
It's interesting that they connect with fairies. So is fairies something that is connected with witchcraft, or is it something that you guys associate with witchcraft? Is it something like historical, or?
Yeah, in historical witchcraft, you do find it's way, like Dante's Inferno, or Dante's Inferno, is it? Milton Paradise Lost, all of that. So go back further than Shakespeare, and then we actually find the fairy folk within Cornish culture. So yeah, they are definitely a part, but there's also they have the darker side, and then they have the lighter side. So they're pretty much the closest beings to us that we would consider to be human, kinda. So they're middle, pretty much like me.
So that's really interesting. I guess that makes sense because a lot of the witchcraft, I guess, derives from England or the UK side of things. That's where it kind of originated, obviously, in that society. And I guess that's where fairies are also originated from. So is that the connection? Is it that they're kind of both from the same region?
It's all about the land. So whatever, because traditional craft is very regional. So what they practice in Cornwall is not what I'm practicing here. I can try, but I can't physically be on the ground of Cornwall. So I have to go with my own legends, my own mythology, like the local legends we have here. Like we have Chief Menominee, with the Trail of Death and the Trail of Sorrow or Tears. He protects us from, like tornadoes. We've never been hit with a tornado, thank the gods. So that's basically what we go by, like regional. So I work with my local like deities and different spirits, like the Native Americans that were here before. So it's very regional, and it's very much of the earth, of the soil. But it is not, it's not Wicca. It's not a fertility cult. So we don't think of it as being derived from like a goddess worshiping pre-Christian cult.
That's very interesting. I think that is very awesome that, witchcraft is actually connected with the soil, but you can only do your type of witchcraft at your location. But say, like you're saying, in Cornwall, they have to do their kind there. So what are some of the different kinds that you've come across in your life of doing this? Is there different kinds of witchcraft that people can be aware of?
Oh, wow. I've only studied traditional Cornish craft. If you kind of go, let's see, go east of Cornwall, you're going to have more of like in Wales, you're going to have more of their deities, the Welsh deities. So like they're going to work with those ones. Honestly, traditional craft is the only craft that I've ever actually really submersed my entire being into. So I'm not too, I mean, I know what Wicca is. I don't agree with it, but I mean, I respect people that are Wiccan. I try my hardest.
Okay, yeah, that's understandable. Like you have one path that you want to go down, so that's the path that you choose for yourself that you feel you can work with, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So what do you do for people then day to day besides doing things like spell work and stuff like that? Do you have clients that you talk to day to day, or do you do sessions for people, or what kind of work in that kind of witchery world do people expect from you?
Daily, I will go on and I will do readings for people with the help of my ancestors. In traditional craft, we have like house dolls. We have all kinds of, the witch is very, the traditional witch is very, you can see it's cluttered. It kind of looks cluttered. So we have all kinds of different spirit helpers. So a lot of channeling of different spirits. So I wake up, get a message, type it out, put it on all of my platforms. A lot of healing work, getting people to actually release emotions. So it's psychological. It's very psychological in ways. Like the tarot, I'll do the tarot daily for people. Ouija sessions I will do for people as well. So it's just a broad spectrum of pretty much everything that you can possibly think of, since it is a neutral path, but it's also a dual faith path. So in Cornwall, you'll actually see them going to church on Sunday morning, but then come Sunday night, you're going to see them half naked, us half naked, dancing wildly around fires and stirring up. That's to stir up the serpentine energy and to get the land energy stirred up, and you can direct it to your end goal.
And that's a question I think I have, and some people might have as well, is when you do those type of rituals after that you're trying to put your intent into, is it necessary for you to do it with a group of people? Because that's what you always see, is some group of people doing that type of ritual, or is that something you can do by oneself?
You can do it by yourself. I have to do it by myself because in this small, what I call a village, it literally is a village. So we're pagans. We live on the outskirts of the city. More tighter, more what could be more fitting than that? So it's solitary too, but it is also very family oriented. So within traditional craft, we have the family, the unit of the family is very important. Respecting your elders, common sense, basically, instead of like thinking, okay, so like say my child, like we talked about earlier, my kid, if I had a kid, if it was hungry and I was broke and poor and I seen a little like side thing with food, am I willing to pay the price of going to jail so my kid can be have sustenance? Yeah, of course. But it's mostly solitary for me. Over in Cornwall, there's a lot more of covines or covens, if you want to call it.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for as well, is your coven that you belong to. So you don't actually belong to a coven, or are you just sort of soul by yourself?
No, I'm just by myself. It's just me.
Is that a good thing, because you deal a lot sort of within one side of it compared to the other side, or do you feel that you can lean more towards the one side of things if you're by yourself?
For me personally, it is, I don't have to take orders from either the magister or the magistra in traditional craft. So it would, in Wicca, I think you could compare it to like the Lord and the Lady. So you don't have to listen to like anybody higher up, except for your conscience and your conscience and the deities and the powers that we do actually work with.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. In a lot of movies and stuff you see in shows, you'll see that deal with the witchcraft topic. They'll talk about that higher person, or the master, as some call it. Is that real? Is that something that's real, that when you deal with witchcraft, is there something higher up that you have to obey?
We do. He's called the devil or the baka. So he is, literally the embodiment of nature. So he is both, wonderful and beautiful and, a lover and a friend all in one. And then on the other side, he's, the tornadoes, the cyclones, the typhoons, the wayward, crazy weather that we have. So, I mean, I think most traditional witches are very, very conscious, and our conscience actually, kicks in all the time saying, hey, this is wrong. Why are you doing this? Why don't you just step back and think about it a little bit more before you proceed further? So it's really all in us, but then we do, we have just the God is, it's more male God oriented than the neo-pagan spiritualities.
Okay, that's something I just was curious about. Like, you always hear of them going to the master or the higher power and having to obey what they say, right? So I was just wondering if that was something that was true or if it was something that was made up kind of thing, if you actually have to do that. But since you're on your own, you say you just have to kind of go with your own conscience and do what you want to do, which I think is kind of the better way of doing it.
Yeah, no, totally, I agree. If you were in, like, say, Cornwall, though, and you were actually in a coven or a covine is what they call it, you would have to, like, you do listen to, like, your elders in the coven, you listen to, the higher ups, you listen to the magister, the magistra, or the mistress and the master of the ceremony, and you do what they say. You don't, go over here just a little bit. You stay in line.
So have you found it better off since you've been doing it on your own? Have you found that you get to where you want to be, your end goal of things? Have you found that works better for you that way?
I do. It's honestly, I will tell you the truth, Trevor, it has brought me, I think it brings me personal, like, satisfaction, like, with my family. Like, the whole colony and the family unit, that's the biggest thing that I can possibly think of, because it teaches you to respect your elders, your parents. It teaches you it's cool to be, friends with your parents and to listen to them, not, go against their wishes and be, quote, heathens. But family is, it's really, that's what it's all about in traditional craft. And that's why it's this kind of secretive, because it's like family secrets, like grandma's secret recipe is kept. That's how it kind of is in traditional craft. Certain mysteries are kept to us and we don't reveal them. Like if the baka, the horned one, the devil, imparts knowledge or bestows any kind of wisdom on us, and says, don't, tell anybody, if we think that we could, dispense that information, then we can. But there's a lot of stuff that I do not dispense or, shovel out. So it's really personal. It's a really personal thing.
Yeah, it's got to be. Well, dealing with anything with spirit or spirituality is personal. Even having an experience is personal. So that's one thing I want to touch upon next is what kind of experiences have you had while dealing with that type of energy? Is there one thing that you can recall that was kind of like, wow, that was really weird? I wasn't ready for that, or...
Okay, so I don't know what they call them. Is it called a tupla? Thought form. A thought form. Okay, so within traditional craft, there is some sex magic. So that's a part of, basically all religions and all, systems with a magical background or basis or, whatever. So if you do enough of it and you're actually focusing on something, you actually create something from that. So I literally had this thing. It looked like a giant spider to me with red eyes. I can't even really describe it, but it would crawl around my entire house, on my walls, on the house, in the house. I would actually wake up and I would see these beings surrounding my bed with cloaks on, and they would just be staring at me. And I'm just like, why are you staring at me? So that was the scariest part. But then, meeting Pan back when I was 13, that was the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced in my life.
And what was the outcome of that? How did you handle that type of situation then, if you're seeing these apparitions or whatever they are, or shadows that are in your area, inside your home? How did you handle that?
Ask as many questions and be as obnoxious as you can with your questions to everybody. Because you want to get, everybody's, their viewpoints, everybody's, opinion, and then you want to, make sure that you're not crazy. So I personally went to the doctor and I, had a psychic evaluation. I was fine, normal. I'm like, oh, that's surprising, honestly. And then it came back, and then I was like, okay, so, I journaled it and did a lot of shadow work. And then I actually got into it, and I'm like, okay, so Pan, yes, that was, a direct result of me unknowingly, calling on him. And he's like, no, you're not going to do that, and you're going to serve me. So it's kind of, it was kind of backlash. That's the only kind of negative karma, if you want to call it, that I've ever kind of pretty much received in the terms of, like spirituality or, working with the energies or the deities or spirits or magic.
That's good. So we were talking earlier too, before we went live, about how you do your magical work and spells and whatnot. So when you do spell work and you put your intent out there for it to have a certain purpose, how does that work when you do the spell work then? I know you're talking about it having a karma effect, and sometimes when you do that type of work, it comes back on you. So I've always heard that. I'm sure other people have heard that as well. So can you talk about that for a little bit? Like, how does that work when you do spell work, or how do you prepare to do stuff?
For me, we hollow a compass, which is a literal sphere that puts us outside of time and space, because we all know that time and space doesn't exist. It's made up by man. Like most things. So we can either, do a full-blown ritual, or it's very simple. Go to your altar. I mean, I have my altar right here behind me, and I'm not sure. You can see some herbs hanging. If somebody's, in need of like some healing, I could go pick some, like some sage off of the bundles hanging and just do a simple prayer and a tea light. It is, it's the get it done now and the quickest way and the best way possible. Or you can go full out, do a giant ceremony, do the, calling in and the invocation of, the horned one, and sometimes the goddess, all of the different directions, the virtues of, those directions, the crossroads. So, and then we can either do something very tiny and very simple, such as like, a healing candle, or, a healing poppet. Poppets are a really big thing in traditional craft too, especially in Europe.
So puppets are sort of like voodoo dolls, or are they something different?
Completely different. Okay. Voodoo dolls were originally meant to pinpoint for a medical doctor what was ailing the person. So I think they do derive from that, though. And then the poppet is actually made of either, wax, or it's, molded into from different candles that have been, used in a certain consecutive spell or like a ritual. And then you can form that into, the wax, or you can, just sew a simple little poppet. And then, you put, your herbs and all your different things inside of it. And then you call on different virtues and spirits and energies. And they actually come in the, sympathetic magic. So it's kind of like contagious magic, like gum, you step on it, so the healing, it's getting spread like gum.
Okay, no, that's interesting. I think I've heard of that before, actually, but I just want to reference, because I think people think of voodoo dolls right away when you say some kind of puppet or doll. So I just wanted to clarify to make sure. So
yeah, no voodoo.
Yeah, no voodoo. I know you don't like that. You kind of tried that out, and that wasn't for you, so you went down the other path. So which is your choice. So
I was very devoted.
Yeah,
but it wasn't for me.
Yeah. So how do you do things? I sort of asked you this already, but how do you do things day to day for people? Like, I know you do tarot readings, or not tarot, but you do readings for people. You do spells and stuff like that. How does that help people, like day to day? What's the most common thing people come to you for?
How do I get my life together? How do I get myself out of a mess? How can I become not such a mess? That's like the main thing that people come for the readings, for guidance from like spirit guides. And it's literally like tarot is literally psychology, a psychiatrist in a box. So literally when I'm doing the readings, I studied a lot of depth psychology, Jungian psychology. So I take what I've learned from the psychology and then I incorporate that within my tarot readings. And it gives me like kind of a little bit more of a glimpse into what they're going through. And then, being an empath and being able to feel what they're feeling, and, kind of, it's like, okay, I can put myself in your shoes like that. And then we can actually kind of get down to the bottom of it. Do you need to do shadow work? Do you need to do healing work, unblocking work? So it's just kind of clearing all the energy out of the body is, literally everything.
So it touches upon a little bit everything that they're looking for. Then you could kind of sense what the person is wanting, right? You can kind of in tune to the person and sense what they want, or what they need.
It's almost like a giant, like it's almost like there's a cord that attaches to your heart to their heart, and it feels like that you're actually, just kind of experiencing just a little bit of what they could be experiencing. And it's usually spot on, and it's usually pretty scary. So people will come back and tell me, I've been to like 12 other readers and they all said the same thing you did. And I'm like, well, yeah, because they're picking up and they're doing it correctly. So it's a little scary at times. It's like, wow, it's that accurate. Yeah, it is. It really works. And it's 29 years later, I'm still like, wow, this works.
Well, there's a good question for you next then. Where do you see yourself going in the future with all this? Do you still want to continue doing what you're doing now, or do you think it's going to progress into something kind of bigger and wider?
I really want to move to Cornwall. I really do. I see myself in Cornwall. Cornwall, or Lily Valley, is it called, in up there by New York? The spiritualist community.
That's Lilydale, I think.
Lilydale,
yeah.
Yes. I honestly, writing books still. I'm in the process of writing another book.
That's great. Well, I'll definitely give you a chance here to promote those. What book have you written in the past, and which one are you working on currently?
I'm not going to divulge the title of this one right now, but this one is, I think, my best one. And unfortunately, my best seller was a homoerotic novel, directly channeled. All my books were channeled. Ouija pop, bringing Ouija into the modern day pop culture, so it doesn't have such a bad reputation. Kind of throwing some glitter on it and saying, here, guys, it's not that evil. It's not evil. It's what your intention is. You bring to the board and you get back. So it's pretty. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's cool. I think that's great to bring that forward to show people that, yeah, it can be used in different ways, and it's your intent that has the final outcome, right? So it's what you put into is what you get out of it, kind of thing. So
it's totally the person's intent. If they want evil, unfortunately, I didn't get the demons that I wanted on the board like Tawny Katane did in Witchboard. So I got, coherent messages, and I'm like, Mom, what is this? She's like, how do you know this? Like, it was the board. She's like, no, it wasn't. Like, yes, it was. So I went through a whole thing of that with them for a long time, and it was crazy. They're like, you can't know that. I was like, but the board told me, so I do. But yeah, it's all what you want. It's all what you think you're going to get back in it.
Yeah, I think that is true with everything in this field. Like the whole paranormal field is whatever you put your intent into is what you get out of it. So thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate you taking your time today and talking to us about your background and what you deal with. It's been eye-opening for sure. I think a lot of people find it interesting what you do and what you deal with, and what you've gone through with it as well. Yes.
I just wanted to say I'm not a specialist or an expert, because nobody's an expert in this field. We're all still learning and growing. So I am nowhere near where I want to be.
Yeah, for sure. Nobody's an expert in this field. There's always learning to do. There's always teaching to do. One thing we try to do here at Haunting Live is showcase different people's way of doing things, because there's not always just one way of doing things, right? So if you do things your way, that's the way you're taught to do it, or that's the way you learn to do it, and that's just fine. So
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate it for you taking time out today to join us here at Haunting Live, and hopefully we'll have you back one day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was fun. This was really freaking fun.
It's awesome. Awesome to learn about your experiences and what witchcraft is all about, especially for people that might be thinking about it or have heard some stuff about it but want to learn more. So,
awesome.
No, well, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your weekend.
All right, you too, Trevor. Thank you for having me on again.
Yep, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Here we go. There we go. And yeah, that was Ryan Espich. He is a witchcraft. He's into traditional witchcraft as well as a bunch of other things. So it's wonderful to talk to him today about what he knows in that field. So it is another field of the paranormal. So for those that don't know what that is, I hope you enjoyed listening to him and learning a little bit about what traditional witchcraft is all about. And what it can do and things like that. And Ryan's definitely the person to talk about that here on Haunting Live Podcast. But thank you everybody for tuning in. We are Haunting Live Podcast. We are live on YouTube right now. We are live each and every Sunday right here at 4 o'clock with a brand new guest to talk about different topics in the paranormal field. We cover everything in the field, but our main topic here is mediumship. So we do talk to most people about psychic work or mediumship work here, but like I said, from time to time, like today, we will have a different topic on that we feel is interesting to you guys. And today it was traditional witchcraft with our guest Ryan. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to follow us here on our YouTube channel. We appreciate it. We noticed a whole bunch of new subscribers lately. I think we're up to 470 now, which is awesome. Thank you guys so much. If you like what we do here, don't forget to share our videos and subscribe, and also like our videos if you like the ones that you watch. That does help us out a lot here on our YouTube channel. We are also on the other social media apps as well, so join us over on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, we do postings over there every week as well. And yeah, we just have a different guest each and every week right here on Haunting Live Podcast. For those that don't know, though, we do actually have an official website as well, which is HauntingLivePodcast.com. You guys can check out our official website and get some official merch from us. We sell paranormal merch or spiritual merch. So we sell things like cleansing materials such as sage and smudging items. We sell crystals as well. We sell some homemade crafts as well that deal with the crystals. Just a whole bunch of stuff that you can use for the paranormal field, like pendulums as well. So go check our store out on our website. That will help us a lot. We do have a half off sale right now going on for Black Friday week. So you guys get half off on all our spiritual merch right now as well. And also don't forget, right here under Haunting Live, Chris at Haunting Live Podcast does spiritual readings as well, the oracle cards, every Saturday night at 8 o'clock on Divine Angel readings. And you can check out his page also under HauntingLivePodcast.com. So thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. I really appreciate you being here and helping us out by subscribing to our channel. And look forward to our guest next week, next Sunday at 4 o'clock. So with that, guys, have a great week. Stay safe. And we'll see you back here at 4 o'clock next Sunday for next Haunting Live podcast.
I have been a medium or an intuitive since any of my family can remember. When I started talking, it wasn't always to people who were in the room.
Well, I started off as revealing light tarot. I've moved more over the last 4 years, astrology and spiritualism. In a way, spiritualism goes back to my roots.
I suppose my first gift I had, and I thought everybody knew, this is a really bad one. I always knew when people were not telling the truth. And I thought everybody could do that. It was a bit of a shock afterwards when I found out that actually what I was doing, I was tapping into something else.
So when I was a very young kid, I actually used to see some orbs in my room and dark figures, and I was very afraid of the dark. It was right when we had like one computer for the whole house. And I would go on it and I'd Google ghosts and like look into it to understand them, but I would also get very freaked out.